You're verifying a mundane cross-border corporate tax filing for a mid-tier German logistics firm at your desk on the 4th floor of Zurich's Bankhaus Vogt. It is exactly 6:14 p.m. on a rain-slick Tuesday. Your mentor and the senior director of private wealth, Dr. Klaus Sterling, walks into your cubicle, his breathing shallow and his face entirely drained of color. Without a word, he places an unvetted titanium-cased hardware ledger onto your leather blotter, whispers a 16-digit alphanumeric string into your ear, and then walks directly to the floor-to-ceiling window, opens it, and steps out into the void. The screaming from the street below begins 3 minutes later, but you do not stand up to look. Instead, your workstation screen flashes an aggressive, high-priority amber notification. An unauthorized $3 billion sovereign liquidity drain from a West African military dictatorship is currently underway, about to trigger a catastrophic clearing failure across the bank's European clearing network. If the transaction fails, the entire institution collapses by morning, and your name, logged as the junior compliance clerk on duty for the evening queue, will be the convenient scapegoat for a multi-billion-dollar transnational financial crime. You do not panic, you calculate. You type the 16-digit code into the secure terminal, unlocking a highly classified, unlisted subledger that you never knew existed. You instantly reroute the fleeing capital through a series of blind trust accounts in the Cook Islands, falsifying the ledger entry to mirror a legitimate sovereign debt buyback program. By midnight, the chairman of the board is standing inside your cubicle. He does not ask about Dr. Sterling's body on the pavement. He simply looks at the stabilized ledger, looks into your eyes, and hands you a silver proximity keycard for the sub-basement elevator. You accept it, leaving your ordinary life on the 4th floor behind, and step into the hidden engine room of global tyranny. 5 years pass, and the transition from a low-level auditor to the sole custodian of the world's most dangerous capital entirely rewires your psychology. You no longer view the world in terms of geography, politics, or human rights. You view it strictly as a shifting matrix of liquidity, yields, and exposure. Your new office sits 3 stories beneath the Zurich pavement, a soundproofed, reinforced vault where the air is kept at a chilling, precise temperature to protect physical bearer bonds and cold storage cryptographic keys. Your client list is a roll call of global atrocity, military juntas, absolute monarchs, kleptocratic presidents, and cartel-financed heads of state. They never see your face, and they do not know your real name. To them, you are merely Archimedes, the digital ghost who ensures their stolen billions remain untouchable by international law and domestic uprisings. Every decision you make carries an immediate, quantifiable body count. When General Al-Jamil launches a brutal scorched earth campaign in his oil-rich province, your phone line rings with an urgent demand to clear a $300 million arms procurement transfer. The United Nations is already drafting an emergency asset freeze directive. You have a window of exactly 42 minutes before the international sanctions take effect. You could easily delay the transaction, claim a technical glitch, and let the arms embargo take hold, saving thousands of lives in the process. But doing so would compromise the bank's ultimate promise of absolute discretion and destroy your utility to the board. You execute the transfer through a complex web of shell companies in Delaware and Cyprus, routing the funds into an Eastern European munitions account. 2 weeks later, the rebellion is crushed. Al-Jamil rewards your efficiency by depositing an additional $500 million of skimmed state oil revenue into your vault. The bank takes its lucrative 2% management fee, and you take the psychological weight of knowing exactly what those tanks purchased. You quickly learn that power is not a static resource, but a volatile equilibrium that you must constantly balance through financial manipulation. Dictators are inherently paranoid creatures, and that paranoia is your greatest asset. They know that if they are overthrown, their successors will attempt to claw back the national treasury, meaning they trust you far more than they trust their own generals or family members. You develop an intricate nesting doll style of asset protection to exploit this dependence. For an aging dictator in East Asia, you construct a matrix of 7 layers of offshore entities, utilizing nominal directors in Panama, trusts in Liechtenstein, and holding companies in the British Virgin Islands, terminating in a physical bullion vault carved into a Swiss mountain. Your role becomes that of an economic life support system for authoritarianism. This creates immense moral dilemmas when a regime begins to fracture. When President Borja is ousted by a popular democratic uprising, his newly installed successor government demands the immediate repatriation of $4 billion in plundered state funds. Concurrently, Borja calls you from a satellite phone aboard a private jet fleeing the capital, demanding an immediate wire of $20 million to pay his remaining loyalist mercenaries. If you comply with the new democratic government, you signal to every other tyrant on your books that Bankhaus Vogt will abandon them when they fall, destroying the firm's reputation overnight. If you fund Borja, you risk international blacklisting and a federal indictment for harboring stolen wealth. You choose a calculated alternative. You freeze the accounts under the unilateral pretext of an internal anti-money laundering audit, forcing Borja's jet to land without funding, where he is promptly captured by the new regime. You then quietly skim $40 million into the bank's internal reserve account as a compliance penalty before negotiating a highly complex 30-year repatriation schedule with the naive new democratic government. The bank prospers, the client is neutralized, and your position becomes entirely indispensable. By your 8th year, the scale of risk compounds exponentially as the global political landscape fractures into a multipolar Cold War. Your ledger ceases to be a mere record of wealth and becomes an active geopolitical battlefield where empires are bought and sold. A severe crisis erupts when Marshal Volkov, a nuclear-armed autocrat whose regime holds $12 billion in your sub-basement vault, prepares to invade a neighboring state. The problem is that the neighboring state's corrupt Prime Minister Duskova is also a major client of yours, harboring $6 billion under the guise of an agricultural import cooperative. Both leaders contact your encrypted line within 20 minutes of each other. Volkov demands an immediate liquidation of his sovereign bond portfolio to finance his frontline logistics and ammunition supply lines. Duskova threatens to leak your bank's entire operational blueprint to the United States Department of the Treasury, triggering the nuclear option of financial sanctions that would cut Bankhaus Vogt off from the SWIFT network entirely, unless you freeze Volkov's war chest. A single miscalculation will not just cost you a client, it will either trigger a devastating regional war or cause the immediate destruction of your institution. You sit in the dark of your vault, the glow of 3 high-resolution monitors illuminating your face, calculating the probabilities of survival. If you freeze Volkov's funds, his intelligence services will likely dispatch an assassination squad to Zurich to eliminate you. If you fulfill his request, Duskova will execute her threat, and the U.S. government will dismantle your bank by the weekend. You formulate a ruthless, high-stakes counter-strategy that leverages their mutual desperation. You do not freeze Volkov's assets, which would violate your core mandate, but you deliberately throttle his transaction speeds by manufacturing a synthetic compliance bottleneck, an artificial automated flag for enhanced due diligence that you claim is driven by an unyielding Swiss regulatory update. To offset his anger and keep him dependent, you offer him a confidential collateralized short-term loan against the physical gold reserves he holds in your mountain vault, charging an extortionate 10% interest rate that directly enriches your firm while delaying his military deployment by a crucial week. Simultaneously, you execute a controlled anonymous leak of a minor non-lethal branch of Duskova's offshore network to a European media outlet, generating a massive domestic political scandal that forces her into a defensive posture at home, effectively paralyzing her ability to coordinate with Western intelligence agencies against you. You are playing a game of 3-dimensional chess with human lives, balancing the survival of 2 nations on a knife edge to preserve the sovereignty of your desk. The immediate crisis is averted, but the pressure never truly dissipates. It merely mutates into a more permanent form of danger. A formal subpoena from a U.S. Senate investigative committee arrives on your desk, alongside a quiet, informal warning from the Swiss Federal Intelligence Service stating that they can no longer guarantee your diplomatic safety if your transactions cross into the territory of state-sponsored terrorism. Your phone lines hum with constant encrypted static. You sleep less than 4 hours a night on a narrow leather cot positioned behind your main terminal. Your survival sustained by black coffee and prescription stimulants. You realize with absolute clarity that you have become a permanent hostage to the very wealth you manage. You cannot resign. To step down is to step outside the protective umbrella of Bankhaus Vogt and become an exposed target for every intelligence agency, hit squad, and deposed tyrant on the planet. You are the sole individual who holds the cryptographic keys to 30% of the world's illicit sovereign wealth. If you disappear or die, $40 billion vanishes into the digital void, sparking economic collapses across 3 continents. Your monitor chimes, breaking the heavy silence of the vault. A new notification flashes in sharp red prose. A violent military coup is currently unfolding in South America, and a general you have never heard of is already attempting to wire $95 million into an anonymous holding account. You wipe the cold sweat from your palms, adjust your cuffs, and log back into the terminal. The world outside continues to tear itself apart, but here, in the quiet dark, you press enter, adjusting the margins of global survival for another day.